The town doctor faced death. Yet the saloon girl gave him an heir only she could, and the greatest. The sun had not yet risen over Red Hollow when Dr. Samuel Hayes opened his eyes. The town still slept under a blanket of silence. Only the wind moved through the empty streets, carrying dust along the wooden boardwalks. Most people would stay in bed until daylight, but Samuel had been awake before dawn for many years. It was a habit formed by duty. He sat slowly on the side of his bed and pressed a hand against his chest. A sharp pain came and went like a warning. He closed his eyes until it passed. Then he stood, washed his face, and dressed in the same careful way he always did. Clean shirt, dark vest, boots polished though worn with age. He looked into the small mirror above the basin. The face looking back at him was thinner than before. His eyes were tired. His hair had more gray each month. Still, when the people of Red Hollow saw him, they saw strength. They saw the doctor who never turned anyone away. Samuel stepped outside into the cool morning air. His clinic stood beside his small home near the center of town. It was not grand, but it was respected. A wooden sign hung above the door. Dr. S. Hayes. By sunrise, people would be lined up outside. They always were. Red Hollow was a rough place, but not a cruel one. It was built by hard work, long days, and stubborn hearts. Ranchers came in from the open land. Shopkeepers swept dust from their doors. Children ran barefoot through the streets. Travelers stopped long enough for a meal, then moved on. And through all of it, Samuel remained. He had delivered babies, treated fevers, stitched wounds, and sat beside dying men who feared being alone. He had done it for rich ranch owners and poor widows alike. Some paid him in coins. Others paid with eggs, bread, or nothing at all. He accepted all the same. That morning, before the sun fully rose, someone knocked hard on his door. Samuel opened it to find young Billy Turner, breathing fast. "Dr. Hayes, please come quick. My little sister can't breathe right." Samuel did not waste a second. He took his black bag and followed the boy through the streets. They reached a small house at the edge of town. Inside, a girl no older than 7 lay in bed, her face pale, her breathing weak and shallow. Her mother stood nearby with tears in her eyes. Samuel knelt beside the child and listened to her chest. He spoke calmly. "She has a heavy cold in the lungs, but we caught it in time." He mixed medicine, gave instructions, and stayed until the girl's breathing eased. The mother tried to hand him 2 small coins. Samuel gently closed her hand around them. "Buy soup," he said. When he stepped back outside, the sun was rising over Red Hollow. His day had only begun. By noon, he had seen 12 patients. A ranch hand with a broken finger, an old man with a cough, a pregnant woman worried about pain, a baker who burned his arm on an oven tray. Samuel treated each one with patience. But between patients, he leaned against the wall when no one watched. Twice, he had to steady himself after sudden dizziness. Once, he coughed into a cloth and quickly folded it away. No one noticed, or if they did, they said nothing. The doctor had always seemed tireless. People believed some men simply did not break. That afternoon, Samuel walked toward the general store to buy fresh bandages. The streets were busier now. Wagons rolled by. Men called greetings. Women carried baskets. Children laughed near the water pump. Across the road stood the Silver Lantern Saloon. Music drifted through its swinging doors. Men entered smiling and left louder than they came. Many people in town spoke poorly of the women who worked there. They judged them easily and understood them little. One of those women was Clara Bell. She stood outside the saloon holding a bucket of water, cleaning dust from the front steps. Her dress was simple blue cotton, not flashy like some expected. Her dark hair was tied back. She moved with quiet purpose. 2 boys nearby argued over a torn shoe. Clara noticed, called one of them over, and handed him a wrapped piece of bread from her apron pocket. "Share it," she said. The boy grinned and ran off. No one praised her. Most did not even look. Samuel had seen small acts like that before. Once, he saw her leave a basket of food at a widow's door after midnight. Another time, he saw her give coins to a man too proud to beg. She never stayed to be thanked. As Samuel crossed the street, Clara looked up. "Good afternoon, doctor." He tipped his hat politely. "Miss Bell." That was all, yet there was respect in exchange. Then Samuel's vision blurred. The buildings around him seemed to bend. A ringing filled his ears. He took one more step and felt the ground vanish beneath him. People shouted. A basket fell. Someone yelled for help. Dr. Samuel Hayes collapsed face first into the dusty street. For a moment, the whole town froze. Then Clara dropped her bucket and ran. She reached him before anyone else. Kneeling in the dirt, she gently turned him onto his back. "Give him room," she called. Her voice was sharp and steady. The crowd obeyed. Samuel's face was pale. His breathing was shallow. Clara placed a hand near his neck, feeling for a pulse the way she had once seen doctors do. "It's there," she said. "Weak, but there." She looked around. "You, too. Help me lift him." Two men stepped forward. One was the barber, the other a blacksmith's son. Together, they carried Samuel toward his home, while Clara led the way. Inside, she ordered blankets warmed and water boiled. The barber blinked in surprise. "You know what to do?" "I know enough to keep a man alive until he wakes," she replied. They laid Samuel on his bed. Clara loosened his collar and placed a cool cloth on his forehead. She sent one boy to fetch medicine from the clinic shelves. She sent another to call Mrs. Donnelly, the widow who sometimes helped with cooking. Then she sat beside the bed and waited. Hours passed. Outside, whispers spread through town. The doctor fell in the street. Is he dying? And the saloon girl is with him. Some said it with concern. Others said it with judgment. Clara ignored them all. Near sunset, Samuel stirred. His eyelids opened slowly. The room was dim with evening light. His head ached. His body felt heavy. He turned and saw Clara seated beside him, reading labels on medicine bottles. For a second, he thought he was dreaming. "You stayed," he said weakly. She looked up. Relief softened her face. Someone had to. He tried to sit up, but pain struck his chest again. She placed a hand near his shoulder. "No, rest." Samuel, who had given orders all his life, was too weak to argue. He lay back. "How long?" "Since noon." "And the clinic?" "Closed for today," she said. "The town can survive one evening without you." A faint smile touched his lips. That would surprise them. She almost smiled back. Mrs. Donnelly entered with broth and nearly dropped the bowl when she saw Samuel awake. Oh, thank heavens! Soon half the town wanted news, but Clara kept him outside. "He needs quiet," she said. No one challenged her. Night settled over Red Hollow. The clinic lamps were dark. The streets grew still. Samuel woke again later to the sound of rain tapping the roof. A rare storm had come. Clara was still there, seated near the window now. "You should go home," he murmured. "I will when I know you'll see morning. I've seen many mornings." She looked at him carefully. "Yes," she said, "but maybe not enough of them." Her words stayed in the room, between them. Samuel knew what she meant. He had hidden his illness from everyone, but perhaps not as well as he believed. "You noticed," he said quietly. "I notice you cough when no one watches," Clara replied. "I notice you grow tired climbing steps. I notice a man who heals others and forgets himself." Samuel had no answer. Rain continued outside. For the first time in many years, someone had seen past the titled doctor and into the man beneath it. He turned his head toward her. The woman most of Red Hollow dismissed had carried him from the street, protected his rest, and spoken truth no one else dared speak. And as thunder rolled in the distance, Samuel realized something unexpected. When death had reached for him in the dust of the road, the only person who ran toward him was Clara Bell. Morning came slowly over Red Hollow. Thin sunlight slipped through the curtains of Dr. Samuel Hayes' room and touched the wooden floor. Outside, wagons creaked across the street, horses snorted in the cool air, and shop doors began to open. The town was waking, but Samuel was already awake. He had slept little. His body felt weak, heavier than before. Even lifting his arm took effort. The sharp pain in his chest had eased, yet it had left fear behind. He had treated enough sick men to know the truth. A body gives warnings before it fails. He stared at the ceiling in silence. For many years, he had lived by routine. Rise early, work until dark, eat little, rest less, help others. Repeat. There had always been another patient waiting, another child with fever, another ranch hand thrown from a horse, another old woman needing comfort. He had built his life around being needed. Now, he lay in bed while the town moved without him. A soft knock came at the door. Before he could answer, Clara Bell entered carrying a tray. Steam rose from a bowl of oats. Beside it sat tea and a slice of bread with butter. "You are awake," she said. "I can see that," Samuel replied. "And still stubborn," she said. She placed the tray on the small table near the bed. "I am not hungry." "That is unfortunate," Clara said, "because you are eating." Samuel gave her a tired look. "You ordered the town doctor as if he were a child." "No," she said calmly. "A child listens faster." For a moment, he almost laughed. Clara moved around the room with quiet purpose. She opened the curtains wider, folded an extra blanket, then checked the water basin. Samuel watched her. Most people in Red Hollow either talked too much or judged too quickly. Clara did neither. She simply saw what needed doing and did it. "You did not have to stay," he said. "I know." "Then why did you?" She looked at him, then away. "Because no one should wake alone after falling in the street." Her answer was plain, but it carried weight. Samuel slowly sat up against the pillows. The room swayed for a second, then steadied. Clara handed him the bowl. He ate 2 spoonfuls, then 3. By the time he finished half, he realized he truly had been hungry. "You were right," he admitted. "I know," she said. That time, he did laugh. By midday, word had spread through town that Dr. Hayes was resting under Clara Bell's watch. Some people were concerned. Some were curious. Some enjoyed gossip more than truth. At the barber shop, men shook their heads. "At his house?" one asked. "All morning," another replied. At the bakery, women whispered over fresh bread. "Perhaps she wants his money." "What money? He gives half of it away." At the water pump, 2 older ladies frowned. A saloon girl caring for the doctor. Strange times. Yet none of them had gone to help. Samuel tried to rise that afternoon and nearly fell beside the bed. Clara caught his arm before he hit the floor. "You see," she said firmly. "Too soon. I cannot stay here forever. You cannot stand for 10 seconds. I have patience." "And today," Clara replied, guiding him back to the bed. "They will survive." He hated weakness. It felt like a theft of dignity. But her hands were steady and respectful. She did not pity him. She simply dealt with facts. That mattered more than he expected. She handed him a folded paper. "What is this?" "A list." He opened it. Names filled the page. Mrs. Turner's daughter breathing better. Mr. Collins' cough improving. Mrs. Pike's baby fever gone. Baker's arm healing cleanly. Samuel looked up in surprise. "You checked on them?" "I walked through town this morning." "All of them?" "You worry too much to rest otherwise." Samuel stared at the list again. No one had ever managed his burdens before. He had not realized how heavy they were until someone helped carry them. Later, as the sun lowered, Clara stood in the kitchen making broth. Samuel, stronger for the moment, sat at the table wrapped in a blanket. The house was simple. Bookshelves, medicine cabinets, worn chairs, neat tools, clean surfaces. Everything in its place. "It looks lonely," Clara said softly. Samuel raised an eyebrow. "My house. Your life." He looked out the window. The street beyond glowed orange in the evening light. "I had work," he said. "That is not the same thing." He did not answer. Clara stirred the pot. "When I was young," she said, "I wanted to teach children to read." Samuel turned toward her. It was the first time she had spoken of herself. "What happened?" "Life happened." She smiled without humor. "My father died. Debts came. Choices became smaller. And the saloon? It paid faster than kindness." Samuel lowered his eyes. He knew people judged women like Clara. Yet many of those same people spent money at the Silver Lantern and pretended innocence the next morning. "You deserved better," he said. She shrugged. Many people do. There was no bitterness in her voice, only truth. That evening, someone knocked hard at the door. Clara opened it to find Mayor Benson standing stiffly with his hat in hand. Is the doctor receiving visitors? No, this concerns town matters. Then town matters may wait. The mayor cleared his throat. Miss Bell, perhaps you misunderstand who I am. No, she said. I understand exactly. Samuel, listening from the kitchen, hid a smile. He called out, "Send him in, Clara." The mayor entered, uncomfortable. "Dr. Hayes, we are concerned." "We? The council? Then you may tell the council I am still alive." The mayor forced a laugh. "Yes, well, some are wondering when you will return. When I am able." His eyes shifted toward Clara. "And your current arrangement has become a subject of talk." Samuel's face cooled. "My health is town business. My guest is not." The mayor reddened. "Of course." He left quickly. When the door closed, Clara crossed her arms. "You enjoy causing discomfort." "Only in deserving men," Samuel said. Days passed. Clara came each morning and often stayed until night. She cleaned, cooked, sorted medicine bottles, and kept Samuel from overworking. He protested less each day. Some afternoons they spoke for hours. He told her about medical school in a distant city, where he studied by candlelight and ate little so he could afford books. She told him about her mother singing while sewing clothes. He told her how he came west to start fresh. She told him how loneliness can grow even in crowded rooms. Sometimes they sat in silence. It was never awkward. One rainy afternoon, Samuel found Clara mending a torn sleeve near the fire. "You know," he said, "I misjudged you." She kept sewing. "Only you? I assumed you wished to be left alone." "I often do." "Then why help so many people in secret?" Her hands paused. "Because pride makes some people refuse help in daylight." Samuel nodded slowly. He understood that deeply. "And because," she added, "I know what it feels like to be overlooked." The word struck him harder than any pain. He had been praised for years, thanked daily, needed constantly. Yet in all that noise, perhaps he too had been overlooked, not as doctor, but as man. And she had seen him clearly from the start. One evening he coughed hard into a cloth. When he pulled away, a small stain darkened the fabric. Clara saw it. Neither spoke for a moment. Then she quietly took the cloth, folded it, and set it aside. "How long have you known?" she asked. "Long enough." "How long have you hidden it?" "Longer." "Why?" Samuel looked tired beyond words. "Because people need certainty. If the doctor looks afraid, fear spreads." "And what do you need?" The question stunned him. No one had asked in years. He looked at the fire, then at her. "I do not know any more." Clara moved closer and sat across from him. "Then perhaps," she said gently, "it is time to learn." That night, after she left, Samuel remained awake in his chair. The room was quiet except for the ticking clock. He thought of years spent serving everyone and belonging nowhere. He thought of Clara's kindness, her courage, the way she entered each room without asking permission from judgment. He thought of time, how little might remain. At dawn, he dressed carefully and asked messenger boy to fetch Mr. Alden, the town lawyer. When the lawyer arrived, surprised to be called so early, Samuel invited him inside and closed the door. "I need papers drawn," Samuel said. "What sort of papers?" "Important ones." The lawyer opened his case. Samuel spoke for nearly an hour in a low voice. When it was done, Mr. Alden looked shocked. "Are you certain?" "For the first time in many years," Samuel said. "Yes." That afternoon, Clara arrived carrying fresh bread. She noticed the lawyer's carriage leaving. "Busy morning," she said. Samuel stood near the window, pale but steady. He turned toward her with trembling eyes. "There is something only you can do." And for the first time since she had known him, Dr. Samuel Hayes looked unsure of himself. Clara Bell stood still near the doorway, the fresh bread still warm in her hands. Dr. Samuel Hayes had spoken many serious words in his life, but never with a voice like that. It was soft, careful, and filled with fear he could no longer hide. There's something only you can do. The room felt smaller after he said it. Outside, the town of Red Hollow moved through another ordinary afternoon. Wagon wheels rolled past. Horses stamped at the hitching rail. Somewhere far down the street, a child laughed. But inside Samuel's home, time seemed to wait. Clara set the bread on the table. "What do you mean?" she asked. Samuel motioned toward the chair beside the fire. "Please sit." She studied him for a moment, then crossed the room and sat down. He remained standing, one hand resting on the mantel for support. His face looked thinner than even a week before. The strong doctor of the town depended on was fading before her eyes. Yet in that moment, he seemed more honest than he had ever been. "I should have spoken sooner," he said, "but I spent my life believing there would always be more time." Clara kept her gaze on him. "And now I know better." He coughed lightly into a handkerchief, then folded it away before she could see. "I am not recovering, Clara." She did not answer right away. She had known the truth in pieces, but hearing it spoken aloud gave it weight. "How long?" she asked quietly. Samuel looked toward the window. "Months, perhaps less. Maybe more if the Lord is generous. But not years." The words hung in the room like smoke. Clara lowered her eyes. "I am sorry." He smiled sadly. "So am I. There are many things I planned to do when I had time." She wanted to say something comforting, but empty words had never suited her. Instead, she asked, "What is it you need from me?" Samuel drew a slow breath. "I have no wife, no children, no brother, no sister. When I am gone, my name ends. My work ends. This house becomes wood and dust." "That is not true," Clara said. "People will remember what you did." "For a season," he replied. "Then new troubles come and old names fade." He stepped closer, his eyes fixed on hers. "But kindness can continue if someone carries it forward." Clara's heart began to beat faster. "Samuel, I need an heir," he said gently. "Not for pride, not for money, for a purpose." She stared at him, unable to speak. "I have watched this town for years," he continued. "I know their faces in daylight and in darkness. I know who gives only when seen. I know who speaks kindly and who truly is kind." He paused. "And I know there is only one person here I trust with what I leave behind." Clara shook her head once. "You cannot mean me." "I do." "No." She rose from the chair. "You are respected. I am tolerated. You heal children. I pour drinks for men who forget my name. You do far more than that. You know what they say about me." "I know what they say about many people," Samuel answered. "It is rarely the truth." Clara turned away. He continued carefully. "I have seen you leave food at doors in winter. I have seen you give wages to widows. I have seen you comfort the lonely when no one praised you for it." She said nothing. "I have also seen how you cared for me when others only talked." The room was silent except for the ticking clock. Then Samuel spoke the words that changed everything. "Clara Bell, will you marry me?" She turned so quickly the chair nearly tipped behind her. "What?" "I asked with full understanding," he said. "I asked because I respect you, because I trust you, because I would rather spend what time remains beside truth than beside comfort." Tears rose in Clara's eyes before she could stop them. "No one has ever asked me for respect," she whispered. "Then they were blind." She laughed once through tears. "You always speak like a doctor writing a speech. And you always answer honestly." He held out his hand, not pressing her, only offering. "I cannot promise long years," he said. "I cannot promise grand adventures. I can promise honesty, gratitude, and whatever days I have left." Clara looked at his hand. All her life, doors had closed in her face. Men had offered coins, not honor. Attention, not devotion. Need, not trust. Now the most respected man in Red Hollow stood before her, asking not to be saved, but to be shared. She placed her hand in his. "Yes," she said softly. "I will." Samuel closed his eyes for one moment, as if a burden had finally lifted. The wedding took place 2 days later. No grand celebration was planned. Samuel had no strength for crowds, and Clara had no wish for gossip turned into spectacle. So it happened in Samuel's parlor. Mr. Alden the lawyer stood as witness. Reverend Pike held a worn Bible in his hands. Mrs. Donnelly cried before the vows even began. Samuel wore his best dark coat. Clara wore a plain cream dress borrowed from the widow next door and altered overnight. When the Reverend asked if Samuel took Clara as his wife, his answer was steady. "I do." When he asked Clara, her voice trembled but did not break. "I do." They exchanged simple rings. Then Reverend Pike smiled warmly. "What God joins, let no foolish town gossip divide." Even Samuel laughed at that. When the ceremony ended, Clara kissed Samuel's cheek gently. He looked younger in that moment than he had in years. Outside, word spread through Red Hollow faster than wind. The doctor married Clara Bell. The saloon girl? Today. Some were shocked, some offended, some delighted by scandal. But others, especially those who had received Clara's hidden kindness, smiled quietly. Marriage changed the house at once. Flowers appeared on the table. Fresh bread filled the kitchen. Curtains were opened wider. Samuel's books were dusted, sorted, and loved instead of merely stored. And though his body weakened, his spirit grew lighter. They ate meals together, walked slowly on the porch in evenings, talked late into the night when sleep would not come. He taught her to read difficult medical words from his books. She taught him card games and how to laugh when he lost. One afternoon, she found him writing letters. "For patients?" she asked. "For the future," he said. "Another day." She caught him watching her from the doorway. "What now?" she asked. "I was thinking I should have become ill years ago." She frowned. "That is a terrible thing to say. It is the only reason I finally stopped long enough to meet my wife." She tried to scold him, but smiled instead. Yet time was not kind. Some mornings Samuel could not rise without help. Some nights pain kept him awake. His cough deepened. Still, he never complained in front of Clara, and she never let him face weakness alone. When he was too tired to hold a cup, she held it for him. When fear touched his eyes, she changed the subject until courage returned. When townspeople came pretending concern but carrying judgment, she sent them away with such calm firmness that few returned. Then, weeks after the wedding, Clara noticed something unusual: morning sickness, fatigue, a strange hunger at odd hours. At first she said nothing. She wanted certainty. Mrs. Donnelly, who had raised 5 children, took one look and smiled wide. "My dear," the widow said, "you are carrying life." Clara sat down hard in the kitchen chair. "Are you sure?" "As sure as sunrise." Her hands moved to her stomach. A child. Samuel's child. Their child. She laughed and cried at once. That evening, she found Samuel resting by the fire. "I have news," she said. He opened one eye. "Good or bad?" "The best kind." She placed his hand gently over her abdomen. For a moment, he did not understand. Then he did. His eyes filled with tears. "Truly?" "Yes." Samuel covered her hand with his own. "I had hoped," he whispered, "but I did not dare ask heaven for so much." He bent forward and kissed her hand. Then he laughed softly, the sound weak but full. The town doctor finally has a patient coming who cannot be late. Months later, when winter winds touched Red Hollow, Samuel's strength faded quickly. He spent more time in bed. Breathing became harder, yet peace stayed in the house. He often rested a hand on Clara's growing belly and smiled. One quiet evening, he asked for a sealed letter from the desk. "For after," he said. She did not want to hear that word, but she nodded. He placed the letter in her hands. "When the time comes, have the town gather. What is in it?" "My last prescription for Red Hollow." She held it close. Then she sat beside him through the night. Knowing joy and sorrow now lived in the same room. Winter settled over Red Hollow with cold mornings and long silent nights. Frost covered rooftops, and thin smoke rose from chimneys before sunrise. The town moved slower in the season, but inside Dr. Samuel Hayes' house, time moved faster than anyone wanted. Samuel's strength had nearly gone. The once tireless doctor now spent most of his days in bed near the window, wrapped in blankets. His face had grown pale, and each breath came with effort. yet his eyes still carried the same calm kindness that had comforted the town for years. Clara Bell never left him alone. She kept the fire warm, the room clean, and medicine near his bed. She read to him from old books when he could not sleep. She helped him sit when he wished to see the sun rise, and when pain crossed his face, she took his hand until it passed. Her own body was changing too. Their child was growing, and soon she would be a mother, but she never complained of tiredness. She gave all her strength to the man who had given her dignity. One evening, snow clouds gathered outside. Samuel looked toward the darkening sky. "Clara," he said softly. She moved beside him at once. "I am here." "I know." He smiled faintly. "That has become the greatest comfort of my life." Tears filled her eyes, but she blinked them back. "You will say such things tomorrow, too." He gently shook his head. "No, tonight I speak while I still can." She sat beside him on the bed and held his hand. Samuel looked at her for a long moment. "You made my last season the richest of all my years. Samuel, you gave me a home, not just a house." His gaze lowered to her belly. "And you gave me a future." He closed his eyes for a moment, gathering breath. "When our child asks about me one day, do not tell stories that make me larger than truth." What should I tell them? Tell them I was a man who worked too much, until I learned what mattered. Clara bent forward and kissed his forehead. "I will tell them you were loved." A peaceful silence filled the room. Before dawn, with Clara's hand in his and snow beginning to fall outside, Dr. Samuel Hayes breathed his last quiet breath. The town doctor was gone. News spread through Red Hollow before breakfast. Shop doors opened late. Horses stood tied without being ridden. Men removed their hats when speaking his name. Women wiped tears with apron corners. Even children sensed something solemn had happened. Many had depended on Samuel. Some had loved him. All had known him. The church filled beyond its benches on the day of the funeral. Ranchers stood near bakers. Shopkeepers stood beside widows. Families lined the walls. The Silver Lantern Saloon closed its doors in respect. Clara wore black and stood in the front row, one hand resting over the child she carried. Some looked at her with sympathy, some with curiosity, some still with judgment. But none dared speak unkindly that day. Reverend Pike delivered a simple sermon. "Dr. Hayes healed bodies," he said, "but he also healed fear. Many of us slept easier because he lived among us." Heads nodded across the room. When the service ended, people formed a long line to offer Clara condolences. Most meant well. Some were awkward. A few said nothing at all and simply squeezed her hand. Then Mr. Alden, the town lawyer, stepped forward carrying a sealed envelope. Clara recognized it at once. Samuel's final letter. She had nearly forgotten it in grief. Mr. Alden cleared his throat. Dr. Hayes instructed that this be read publicly after his burial, before the people of Red Hollow. Whispers moved through the crowd. The townspeople remained in the church. Some sat again. Others leaned against walls. Clara stayed near the front, heart pounding. Mr. Alden broke the seal and unfolded several pages. He began to read. "To the people of Red Hollow, if these words are being heard, then my work among you has ended. I thank God for allowing me to serve this town. You gave my life purpose, even when I forgot to seek joy for myself. Now I ask one final thing. Judge less quickly than you have done before. There is a woman among you whose kindness many ignored because pride clouded your sight. While some of you spoke, she acted. While some of you judged, she gave. While some of you watched me fall, she ran to lift me." The church grew very still. Every eye turned toward Clara. Mr. Alden continued, "I speak of my wife, Clara Hayes. I leave my home, savings, medical books, clinic building, and remaining land to her care. My clinic shall remain open as a place of healing for any person in need, whether rich or poor. The back room shall be turned into a school for children whose families cannot afford one. Clara shall oversee both until our child comes of age. Trust her, for I trusted no one more." Gasps filled the room. The lawyer turned the page. "And if any person questions why I chose her, let them first ask themselves what they ever did for others when no applause was waiting. My final request is simple. Treat Clara with the respect you should have shown long ago. Samuel Hayes. Silence followed. Heavy, honest silence. Some lowered their heads in shame. Others wiped tears. Even those who had doubted Clara could not deny the truth of Samuel's words. Clara stood frozen, tears slipping down her cheeks. She had expected memories. She had not expected a mission. The next weeks changed Red Hollow. Men volunteered to repair the clinic roof. Women brought books, blankets, and supplies for the future school. The baker delivered bread each morning. The blacksmith fixed broken hinges without charge. People who once ignored Clara now greeted her with warmth. She accepted kindness, but not flattery. When someone apologized too dramatically, she simply said, "Do better now." Then she returned to work. Samuel's clinic reopened under her care. She was not a doctor, but Samuel had taught her much. For illnesses beyond her skill, she sent riders to the next town's physician. For simple needs, she cleaned wounds, gave herbs, read Samuel's notes, and offered comfort. Often, comfort helped most. The old storage rooms behind the clinic were cleared and painted. Desks were built from spare wood. Shelves were filled with donated books. A sign was placed outside, Hayes' House of Healing and Learning. Children stared at it proudly. Spring arrived with warmer winds and green patches beyond town. One bright morning, Clara's labor began. Mrs. Donnelly rushed to help. 2 neighbor women came with hot water and blankets. Reverend Pike paced outside, though no one had asked him to. Hours later, the cry of a newborn filled the house. Mrs. Donnelly opened the door, smiling wide. A healthy boy. Cheers rose from the porch. Clara held the baby against her chest, exhausted and glowing with tears. He had Samuel's dark hair, and when he opened his eyes, they were calm and serious like his father's. She named him Thomas Samuel Hayes. The town celebrated for days. The baker made sweet rolls. Children brought flowers. Even the mayor, nervous as always, delivered a silver rattle and nearly dropped it. Clara thanked everyone with grace. But when the house grew quiet that night, she carried Thomas to the window where Samuel once watched sunsets. "There you are," she whispered to the sleeping child. The future he prayed for. Years passed. The clinic helped hundreds. The school taught children who once had no chance to learn. Thomas grew strong, curious, and kind. He loved books, horses, and asking too many questions. Whenever he asked about his father, Clara answered honestly. "He was wise," she would say. "He was stubborn, too." Thomas would laugh. "Was he brave?" "Yes." "Did he love me?" "Before he ever saw you." As Red Hollow changed, people no longer spoke of Clara as a saloon girl. They called her Mrs. Hayes, teacher, caretaker, founder, friend. And when travelers asked how such a small town came to both a clinic and a school, old-timers smiled and pointed toward the hill where Samuel rested. Then they pointed toward the busy building below, where Clara worked and children laughed. The doctor planted the seed, they would say, but she made it grow. And in the end, Samuel's greatest gift was not money, land, or even an heir. It was giving the forgotten woman of Red Hollow the chance to become unforgettable.